Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to today's conference. Conference number 20 of this self-knowledge course called The Psychological Country. The objective of this conference is that we can deepen our psychology. Reflecting on this conference helps us a lot to advance in our inner work because it helps us to observe how our psychology works and what elements are within it and how they move within it. We'll also understand why we mustn't consider ourselves as good, because certainly we are not. And we'll realize it as soon as we understand how our perverse elements manifest and disguised as virtue. First, let's start by saying that we must know that just as the external country in which we live exists, also in our intimacy within ourselves exists the psychological country. As outside, so inside, remember. People are never ignorant of the city or the region where they live. Unfortunately, it happens that they do not know the psychological place where they are located. At any given moment, anyone knows what neighborhood they are in, but in the psychological field, the same thing does not happen. Normally, people do not even remotely suspect at any given moment the place of their psychological country where they've gotten themselves. Just as in the physical world, there are colonies of decent and cultured people, so it also happens in the psychological region of each one of us. There is no doubt that very elegant and beautiful colonies exist. And just as in the physical world, there are colonies or neighborhoods with very dangerous alleys full of assailants, so the same thing also happens in the psychological region of our interior. It all depends on the kind of people who accompany us. If we have drunk friends, we will end up in the canteen. And if the latter are skulls, undoubtedly, our destiny will be in the brothels. Within our psychological country, each one has their companions, their eyes, their defects. This will take them to where they should take him according to their psychological characteristics. But we need to take into account that in the physical country, there are, for example, laws that govern us. Therefore, we try to act in accordance with those laws to avoid the sanctions. However, in our psychological country, we do not have those limitations. So, through imagination, which plays a fundamental role, we can do what we want and go where we want in our psychological country. More than that, we can do all kinds of aberrations and commit any crime there. That is why it is essential to know about this subject to begin to understand our psychology if we really want to make transcendental changes and advance in our inner work. A virtuous and honorable lady, magnificent wife of exemplary conduct, living in a beautiful mansion in the physical world, due to her lustful eyes or defects, could be located in prostitution dens within her psychological country. An honorable gentleman of impeccable honesty, a magnificent citizen, could find himself located within his psychological region in a den of thieves due to his terrible companions, eyes or defects of robbery that are very submerged within the unconscious. A blue monk, for example, living austerely inside his cell in some monastery, could psychologically find himself located in a colony of murderers, gunmen, robbers, drug addicts, precisely due to his infraconscious defects, or unconscious, submerged deep within the most difficult recesses of their psyche. For something, we have been told that there is a lot of virtue in the evil and that there is a lot of evil in the virtues. Many canonized saints still live within the psychological dens of robbery or in houses of prostitution. Although it may seem incredible, Crime is also hidden among the incense of prayer. Crime is also hidden among the cadences of the verse. Crime is hidden under the sacred dome of the most divine sanctuaries, dressed in a tunic of holiness and the sublime word. Most venerable saints have the eyes of the brothel, robbery, homicide, etc., etc. Subhuman companions hidden among the depths of the unconscious, and it is necessary to know how they work, how they manifest, and how they feed. Everything that we can imagine is found and is part of our psychology, good or bad. And every time we are imagining or projecting in our minds, those internal companions that we have are acting and are feeding with our energy. It is something hard and difficult to believe for those people who consider themselves as virtuous. These people are the most reluctant to work on themselves because they do not accept those elements that exist in their psychology and that are disguised as virtue. Let's look at the case of a mother whose son is in bad company. This mother suffers because she feels worried about who her son is with, what he's doing at this moment, and she begins a process of mechanical imagination in which she imagines that her son may be stealing, consuming drugs, murdering, or perhaps being murdered. She feels that her concern is good and that it is her duty as a mother. What she doesn't know is that all those actors participating in those mental scenes are her own delinquent defects, which find a way to feed and manifest themselves through the mechanical imagination of that mother. Through states of criticism of others, this situation also occurs. We criticize a young woman for all the men who visit her home, and we begin to imagine the reasons for their visits and what they will do in there, with a lot of contempt, of course. However, we do not realize that our own prostitute defects are being fed in this action. We go on a bus and listen to a song, we identify ourselves and begin to sing it, or we dislike the song because of its explicit content. We also identify ourselves and let those eyes begin to project. There we feed them. When we watch television, no matter what we watch, in our psychology we are feeding those elements that we are watching. When we play video games, war games for example, that's where we feed our murderous and perverse selves. We hear on the news or someone tells us about a robbery and we begin to imagine everything that happened in that event. There we are feeding our own eyes of robbery. Everything that we are capable of imagining exists in our own psychology. And although many times, due to our personality, we find ourselves at the other pole, the good pole, we make the mistake of feeding those elements through actions such as criticism and judgment, for example. It is very hard to accept that reality, especially for those of us who believe we are holy and virtuous. And this is the main reason why people who think they are good do not move towards true inner change. They are terrified of facing the real perversity of their psychology, and they believe they are good because they do not carry out those actions in the physical world. Every time we are taken out of the here and now of the present moment by our eyes or defects, we let ourselves be carried away to these different parts of our psychological country. Therefore, we must ensure that both our physical country and our inner country are the same in time and space. And we achieve this by living in the present, in the here and now, living in the moment, concentrated and in constant self-observation to discover the ego or details that want to take us out of the moment and eliminate them. and come back to the present moment. Sometimes we are doing something, and due to a lack of self-observation and concentration, psychologically we are in another place doing something else. We are not here now. If, for example, we are imagining a situation that happened yesterday at work, even though we are physically at home, psychologically we are located in our workplace and in a past moment. Another thing is that the different religions have said a lot about life after death and the afterlife. Unquestionably, after death, everyone continues to live in the same psychological colony as always. The thief in the dens of thieves will continue. The lustful in the brothels, the wrathful, the furious will continue to live in the dangerous alleys of vice and anger. We can go, for example, and visit the limbo where people who die go, and we will see people in caves. However, they believe they are alive and doing what they used to do in life. However, they are involved in their own psychology. Either they are in the process of waiting to return in another existence, or they have started their evolution process. We were able to see in Conference 8, called Evolution, Involution, and Revolution, how at the end of the 108 existences as humans, without having worked on ourselves, we start that evolutionary process. Let's remember that physically we go through the different evolutionary kingdoms of nature, but psychologically the person finds himself in his own psychological country, living the process of eliminating his defects through the evolution according to his psychology. Even if we ask our being to show us one of our infradimensions, we will be taken to that place which is part of our psychological country. Well, the essence itself is very beautiful. It came from above, from the stars, and unfortunately, it is inside all these defects that we carry inside. By opposition, the essence can retrace the path, return to the original starting point, return to the stars, but she must first free itself from its bad companions who have it stuck in the suburbs of perdition. The magnetic center, which we have abnormally established in our false personality, needs to be transferred to the essence. Thus, the complete man will be able to begin his journey from the personality to the stars, ascending in a progressive didactic manner, degree by degree, up the mountain of the being. As long as the magnetic center established in our illusory personality continues, we will live in the most abominable psychological dens. Although in practical life we are magnificent citizens. Each one has his magnetic center that characterizes him. The merchant, for example, has the magnetic center of commerce, and for this reason he develops in the markets and attracts what is related to him, buyers and merchants. The man of science has in his personality the magnetic center of science, and for this reason he attracts to himself all things of science, books, laboratories, etc., etc. The esotericist has within himself the magnetic center of esotericism. And since this kind of center becomes different from the questions of personality, undoubtedly transference occurs around this reason. When the magnetic center is established in the consciousness, that is, in the essence, then the return of the total man to the stars begins. So, how can we change our center of gravity, which is centered in our personality towards consciousness? First, we must realize what things our life revolves around. Our work, our family, our leisure time, and realize what they mean to us and the time and energy we dedicate to them. Then we will gradually start taking time away from the things of the personality and giving it to the things of consciousness until we reach to the point where the personality will only have the time that is strictly necessary, and most of the time we will be doing things in pursuit of consciousness. So we will replace those things that are part of our personality, such as the time we dedicate to leisure. We can replace it, for example, with the practices that help us develop our consciousness, such as reflective meditation or making sacrifice for humanity. We can take time away from our hours of sleep and dedicate them to doing the practice of astral unfolding or the practice of sexual transmutation. Here, for example, we see a list of practices that help us awaken our consciousness, with which we can gradually replace those that fit our personality. And well, this has been today's conference. Thank you very much for being here. If you have any question or comment, do not hesitate to leave them in the comments section, and we will be answering them. We invite you to the next conference next Thursday, called Concentration and Relaxation. We will be learning to develop the greatest power to which we can aspire, which is concentration, which allows us to succeed and do everything we undertake perfectly, and how to reach the state of relaxation, which is the natural state of our consciousness. Thank you very much. Until next time.